Hello everyone, my name is Daniel Moore of danmoore.design, and in today's tutorial I'm going to show you how to make this music player app UI design using Affinity-Designer. So what we're going to do first is open up the file menu here once you get Affinity-Designer started and click New. Then from there you're going to go into, yours will probably be set to print or web. Go down to Devices, click that. Page preset, go down to the iPhone 6, 7, 8 Retina, and it'll give you the page width of this in points. So it's 375 points by 667 points. I'm going to change it from points to pixels, and that'll give you the width and height in pixels, and the DPI will be set to 144. Okay, so I'm going to click OK, and that's going to give me an artboard of a size of 750 pixels by 1334 pixels. So if you'll notice, right now we have a blank canvas on our screen, and I'm going to use a very specific color palette for this, along with a very specific font, and I'll put links to what I use in the description below. For these photos, you can use whatever photos you want. So what I'm going to do first is I'm going to find my color palette that I generated. So I'm going to go to File, and then Place, and I'm going to go into wherever you want to save this as. I saved it into a folder called Music App UI Tutorial, and I'm going to click this color scheme, and I'm going to click Open. I'm just going to click and place it into the document, and you'll see here that this gives me my document with the hexadecimal colors. So if you want to use these colors, you can type them in under the color tab here, and you can go into your HSL tab and choose RGB hex, and then it'll put the little pound sign here, and you can type in the numbers here, or you can go to this website coolers.co, and it'll generate color schemes for you. This is the color scheme I liked, so this is what I'm going to be using for the color scheme of my app UI design. So I'm going to lock that so I can't, like, move it. See? I am moving my artboard, so I'm going to put that back over here. So if you'll notice in the picture here, I gave it like a sort of darkish purple background. So that's really simple to do. What I'm going to do is grab this rectangle tool here, or hit M on my keyboard. I'm going to click that. Good. I also have snapping turned on, so there's this little snapping preset here, turn on snapping. I think this is the default setting, so if it's not, here's my settings. Screen tolerance set to 8, candidates, candidate list, maximum 6, only snap to visible objects, snap to grid, snap to spread, snap to margin, snap to object bounding boxes. Make sure these are all checked. So I'm going to go back here, and I'm going to go to this top left corner and click and drag until it's about the same width and height as my artboard. As a matter of fact, I'm just going to call this Music Player UI. Okay, and you'll see now that we added that rectangle to the artboard, it has a rectangle. There's a little drop-down arrow, and you can see the layers within it. So instead of just calling this rectangle, I'm going to call this BG for background. And next, I'm going to hit Escape to deselect it. I'm going to hit I, or rather, I'm going to hit V, go back to my select tool. Click on that background again, and then I'm going to hit I for my eyedropper tool, which is down here. And then I'm going to click on this purplish color right here, the 5D576B color, and just color pick that. And that gives us a nice background color. It's nice, it's dark, and it's very... it can contrast with the other colors very well. So now that I have that in place, I'm going to hit my lock icon and lock this, so I can't mess with it. Can't mess with it anymore. So that's pretty good. The next thing I probably want to do is add in this iOS looking UI thing where it has 100% battery, the time, and these dots with the Wi-Fi symbol. So what I'm going to do is go to my iOS 8 Vector UI kit by Mercury Intermedia, and I'll put a link to the description, or I'll put a link in the description for this. You'll have to download this. I believe it is free for personal use. I think it might be free for commercial use as well. But when you download it and open it in Affinity-Designer, I think you have to right click and open with Affinity-Designer. You'll go down to, it'll be the very first thing you see, like at the top left. It says status bars. You'll click and drag over this background here, or this status bar. I'm just gonna hit Control C, or go to Edit, Copy, and then I'm gonna go back to my design. Then I'm gonna go here, and then I'm gonna go to Edit, Paste, or Control V. Oh, I guess it only brought in the bar. My computer's acting up for some reason. Oh, I think it put it in as a group. So I'm just gonna hit Control, Shift, and G to try and ungroup everything. I was wondering why that wasn't bringing everything over. Okay, I'm also grabbing the dark gray background. Okay, I'm just gonna lock that, just so I can't mess with it anymore. So I'm gonna do this. Still not selecting it for some reason. Just gonna hit Control A and just ungroup everything. Alright, now that I have everything selected, I'm going to hit Control-C to copy. And go to the top here, or try to. Hit Control-V, that should have everything in there. I'm just going to hit Control-G to group everything. And I'm going to call this a status bar. I'm going to drag it to the top here. And I'm going to scale it up just a little bit. The good thing about this is that it's all vector-based, so nothing will be pixelated when you zoom in. Like, everything looks pretty good. So that just gives our design a little bit more realism, makes it look a little bit better. So now that that's in place, I'm going to lock that as well, so I can't mess with it. The next thing I want to do is add this title using a very specific font. And again, I'll put links to the downloads in the description. But the font I'm going to be using is called Neptune Trial. So I'm going to type in Comet Music Player as the brand name of this app. Then I'm going to hit Control A to select all of that, and I'm going to go to my font drop down over here. It says Arial right now, but I'm going to click on the drop down arrow, and I'm going to type in Neptune Trial. So it makes it sort of like that. Like, it gives it that sort of futuristic feeling type of typography. So now that I have it like that, I'm going to make sure that this is center aligned, text center aligned. Then I'm going to go to my Align and Distribute panel, or my Arrange panel, and go to Align Center here, and that should be pretty good right there. Next, I'm going to click and drag on one of these handles to scale it up like this, while still constraining it to the center. I'm going to click on this middle node here, and hold Shift, and just drag it up to about that size. Now we could leave the text color like this, and it should be pretty fine. Like, it's the color black is very contrasted against the background. But if you'll notice what I did here, I gave it like a warm pinkish, lightish pink color, which I believe was this color right here. So I'm gonna hit my I key to go to the eyedropper tool, which is right here. And then I'm gonna click on this color swatch. And now that has the color that we want. It's nice, it's light, and it contrasts very nicely against the background. And that's the type of font that I will be using. It's free for personal use. That's why it's called Neptune Trial. If you want to use the font for commercial use, you will have to buy a license for it. So the next thing I want to do is make this album art cover. And how I can do that is by using the rectangle tool here and going to like a corner, like right here, and then click, drag, while holding Shift, down to about here. Now you see it has the same color as the background, so that'll be fine. I'm just going to give it a different color by going to my eyedropper tool and going to like give it a blue color like this. And you'll see why in a second. This is just to help me differentiate it from where everything else is. Actually, you know, now that I'm thinking about it, I think I'll drag this down just a little bit. There we go. It's not perfectly, it's not a perfect square anymore, but that should be fine. Now I'm going to go into my place, File, Place. I'm sorry, I went a little too quick. So I'm going to go to File and Place. And wherever you, whatever images you have, you can use in this sort of design. So I'm going to pick like this one. And I'm going to click and drag from about here to about here. And you want to make sure that you're using photos that have high resolution, because if you scale them down, like, they won't lose quality. But if you're using a smaller image, like let's say it's about that size, full size, and you try and scale it up, it's going to be very pixelated. So try and work with higher resolution images, like something like 2590 by 1900, or anything bigger than what you really need. I think you can only scale up by 10 or 30% without losing quality. After you go past 30%, you're gonna get pixelation in your photos. So I drug it out to this size because I want it to fit sort of nicely within the square here. And the cool thing about this is that Affinity-Designer has a nice little masking thing, or like a little clipping mask, essentially. So if you position it where you sort of want it, like where you want your composition to be, I'm gonna try scale it. I can, if you have a bigger image, you can try scaling it down to fit better composition. But I think this is fine as is. I'm gonna take this layer here and go down to below and drag to the right of this rectangle layer, and you'll see that it crops out the unnecessary information of the image. So I'm gonna click, hold and drag it down to the right of this rectangle and release. So now you'll see that this has a drop down. It has the image in there. So that's looking pretty good. If you want to edit the actual photo, you have to come down from the rectangle drop down, click on this, and actually like move it the way you want it. I'm going to try scaling this down just a little bit. Make it fit the composition a little bit better. There we go. That's looking pretty good. And that's how you can do photos like that. You can make clipping masks with a lot of these, with any shape really, I think. So like you can take Affinity-Designer's like different tools here, and I think you can put an image inside it. It's a nice little layout technique. So the next thing I want to do is make the album title and the artist's name down here. And you can see that we're using the same font. So I'm going to just click this title here. I'm going to hit Control-C or Command-C on Mac. And, well, actually, I can hold Control while I click and drag this, and it'll make a copy of it. Now I'm also holding Shift, so I'm going to bring this down below to about here. And instead of Comic Music Player, or Comment Music Player, I'm sorry, I'm going to type in Fireworks, and that should be fine for that title. I'm also going to do the same thing again, Control, Shift, drag down, and I'm going to make this title a little bit smaller, that way it denotes a sort of hierarchy. And you can type whatever name you want in here. It can be an actual artist, or it can be a made-up artist, like I'm just going to type in Sarah Jones as the artist. And that seems pretty fine. So far, so good. We got the main bulk of it done. We just need to add a few more UI elements to make it really pop. So if you'll notice in here, I also put a music player with a slider and the time code for the song that's playing. So what I'm going to do then is, to make it seem more realistic, I'm going to go back to my iOS 8 Vector UI kit, and I'm going to scroll out a little bit. My computer is acting a little slow, I apologize for this. I'm going to go down to the music tab over here. And you'll see this sort of thing here. Actually, you know what? Instead of cheating like that, I'm going to make one real quick, a UI player. I'm just going to click and drag and make a thing about the size of this. Triangle tool. That'll be my play button. I'm going to make it like a different color for right now. Rotate it by holding Shift, and it'll go in 15-degree increments. I'm going to put it to the center there. And I'm going to invert these colors. I'm going to make this color this same shade of purple, but I'm going to make it a little bit darker. So I'm going to go over here, and instead of RGB hex, I'm going to go down to the HSL tab as soon as it pops up. There we go. And I'm going to take this L column and drag it to the left till about a darker shade like that. That's pretty good. And then for this, I'm going to make it the same shade of that same sort of off pink, this color. And then I'm going to take this play arrow, shift click this music player bottom, and I'm going to hit the arrange panel and go to align vertically, align to the middle. That way that'll align it to the middle. Then I'm just going to control and drag to move this over, and then I'm going to do the same thing, control shift and drag, and that'll give me the skip button, or move forward a bit button. And I'm going to group those together by hitting Control G. Then I'm going to hold Control and Shift and drag this over here. and it seems like it's evenly spaced out there. And I'm going to hit this button right here that says flip horizontal. Actually, I think they can stand to be moved just a little bit more. Then I'm going to click and drag over everything. Go to my Arrange panel, and click this Space Horizontally button, just to make sure they're nice and centered, or nice and spaced out evenly. That's looking pretty good. So the next thing I think I want to do is add a little music indicator to show how far along in the song it's going. So I'm going to click and drag a rectangle about that size and that width. And I'm going to hit my I key again to go to my eyedropper. Then I'm going to click on this shade of red over here, this pound sign FE938C, and that gives it that nice color red. It's a nice little bit of contrast to everything. And the next thing you'll see is that I added this little music indicator here as well, and it's a nice shade of blue. So in order to create that, I'm going to click and drag out the rounded rectangle tool here, which is below the ellipse tool. Drag out a size about like that. I'm going to make the corners a bit more rounded. So I'm going to go up here to this 27% mark. I'm going to drag it out just a bit more. To about 50%. I'm going to go back to my select tool, click on this, shift click on the rectangle here, and I'm going to hit align vertically. That way it just aligns it perfectly to the middle. Now I don't want it to be the same color red, so I'm going to click this, hit I, go to this color blue. And now you see that we have this nice little indication. So I'm going to hold shift and drag this over just a bit, just to give it a little bit of a difference. I'm going to drag this up just a little bit more too. And now I'm going to add in that time code here. And you can see that I used a different font for this. I used the sans serif font. Any sans serif font I think can work with this. There's enough contrast with this typography to add in a sans serif font. So I'm going to hit my T key, and I'm going to click somewhere about here. And I'm going to type in O2 colon 32 dash 03 colon 34. Now that we have that, I'm going to change it from Neptune Trial to, I think maybe League Gothic. Oh no, I didn't take the change. There we go. Let's make it regular. That's fine, but I don't like the boldness of that. The actual font I used was called Futura, and Futura is not a free font. You have to actually pay for this. But I'm going to use like a light version. Well, actually, there is a different font you can use. Railway has 18 different font families that you can use from. I'm going to use Extra Light. That way it gives it enough contrast between this font and the other font I used. There we go. I'm actually going to move this a bit over to more accurately convey the time code here. I'm going to just drag that up a little bit to make it easier to see. And there you have it. We're almost done. The next thing we're going to add is the little bit of glare that you see in this design element to emulate sort of a screen look. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to my pen tool, which is here, or you can hit P on the keyboard. I'm going to click that, and I'm going to go to this top left corner right here of the artboard, and click, and you'll see that I drag out something to about maybe here. I'm sorry, I didn't take. Okay, my pen tool was acting weird for a second. So I'm going to click and drag to about here. Actually, I'm going to drag it out a bit more. To somewhere about there. I'm going to hit my P key, click on this node just so I can make sure I close out the shape. I'm going to go down to this bottom left corner, click, then come back and bring it up here. And how you'll know you'll be able to close it is if there's a little circle icon when you get near the beginning node, and you'll click there, and that doesn't have a stroke. You'll see that this, where I clicked, it has a little bit of it has a stroke going through to this place, or going through the design like that. It has no fill, so I'm going to change that. I'm going to swap the colors out by hitting this arrow key over here under the color tab. And now you see it's black. In order to make it sort of have that glare effect, I'm going to change this to like a complete pure white. And instead of being 100% opaque, I'm going to change it to about that much. To about 32%. And it gives it that nice little screen glare. I don't like how short that is though, so I'm going to take this node right here, and I'm going to click on this shape and click on this node and just drag it out just a little bit more. Just to get more screen coverage. And that's pretty much it. That's how you can create the music app UI design using Affinity-Designer. So thank you for watching, and I hope you guys have a wonderful day.